The formula that has the UConn Huskies on the cusp of a modern-day dynasty. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want you to do me a small favor. If you're enjoying the content here, please take a second to subscribe and follow the audio versions wherever you listen. It really helps the show grow, and I truly appreciate your support. Every follow, subscription, and download helps create more revenue for UConn NIL. Yes, Locked On UConn is donating 10% of all revenue to Bleeding Blue for Good. So by supporting this show, you directly support the UConn athletic program. Thank you so much for being a part of this Locked On community. It means the world to me, and I'm sure it means the world to the athletes that are receiving those donations. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so what's the formula that UConn has that is on the brink of a modern-day dynasty? So it's a blend of strategic recruiting, dynamic offensive system, and a relentless defensive intensity. That has led to back-to-back championships and a roster now stacked with depth and versatility that's primed for a potential three-peat this season. But let's dive a little deeper into why, in kind of like the nuts and bolts of all this. It's really maintained a consistent approach since 2023 in roster construction, which has proven really instrumental to their back-to-back championships. I mean, there's just really no other way to put it. Hurley and his staff have truly created a strategy that relies on cultivating both the talent and experience transfers, allowing players to grow in UConn's demanding environment. Each year returning players like, an Andre Jackson, Adama Sanogo, Jordan Hawkins. Then they pass the torch, setting the standard for the new roster. This continuity builds a deep bench and preserves a culture where development and readiness are key, not just a one-and-done factory, throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, and let's see if we can win a championship that way. This team has serious tools to succeed immediately because of that strategic roster building. So let's just kind of go through the last couple seasons from a roster perspective. They come into the 2023 season with a lot of expectations. They have talent like Andre Jackson, we just mentioned, Jordan Hawkins, Adama Sanogo, and then you sprinkle in freshmen like Donovan Clingan, Alex Garabin, who is a redshirt, transfer in Tristan Newton, Naheem Aleem, Joey Calcaterra, Hassan Diarra, win a championship. Why? Because of the players that had set the foundation, like Andre, who ran everywhere, by the way, Jordan Hawkins, Adama Sanogo, adding elite talent like Donovan Clingan, and who's now a member of the Portland Trailblazers, and Alex Garabin. Bring in developmental players like Tristan Newton, who is actually now has his jersey retired on the wall before we get ahead of ourselves. Or not his jersey, his number is on the wall. Naheem Aleem, who defected after 2023, but still was a big part of that bench in the 23 title team. Joey California, who was pivotal in a lot of great games last year or 2 years ago, where he came off the bench and was an absolute offensive spark plug. And Hassan Diarra, transferring over from Texas A&M and providing kind of a defensive presence, the ability to drive to the basket, great passer, who is now leading the team this year. What happened? Championship. Quick fast forward to 2024. You lose a ton of players. 3 NBA players and 1 defection and 1 graduation. So you lose Andre, Milwaukee Bucks, Jordan Hawkins, Pelicans, Adama Sanogo, Bulls, Naheem Aleem, St. John's, Joey California, grad student. That's 5 guys. Enter your freshman class. Steph Castle, 5-star. His level was on display once he came back from knee surgery last year. Throughout the season, there are so many instances, there's too many to mention, of him being the best player on the court in college basketball. And it's incredible to me that on a basketball team that was the most efficient college basketball team in the past 25 years, that sometimes he looked like he was dominating in ways that are old school, low usage defensively. When you dared him to score, he did. You brought in the rest of that class. Jalen Stewart, huge performances in clutch moments, including the Big East final. Solo ball, flashed in big games, including at the Garden against North Carolina, especially when players were hurt and they weren't kind of fully engaged into kind of what their rotation was going to be. Jay Ross played early in the year. Yusuf Singari as a developmental player. You return Donovan Clingan, who now has a bigger role. Tristan Newton, same thing, bigger role, makes a leap. Haas, make a leap. Alex, make a leap. Sampson, same thing. Remember what we talked about from this season to next with Dan Hurley's conversation with Hassan Diarra. You don't think that's the only conversation he's had with his players about make the leap, don't come back the same player because you're wasting your time and our time. Every single one of these players made a leap. Donovan went from a defensive specialist to being the most impactful player in college basketball. Tristan Newton went from a fantastic player to Final Four most outstanding player, consensus first-team All-American, the Bob Cousy Award winner for the nation's top point guard, and the Associated Press Big East Player of the Year. Second-round pick. Not too shabby. Pretty nice leap. Sampson played a huge part in impacting games when Donovan was in foul trouble and was an absolute spark plug off the bench. Hassan Diarra makes the leap to Big East Sixth Man of the Year. Alex Caravan went from a single-digit scorer to 14 points a game, 5.1 rebounds, and on a very low usage rate, almost 50% from three, 38% from three-point land, 88% from the free throw line. Highest basketball IQ on the team and absolutely clutch. They all come back a different player and did. Didn't even mention the transfer aspect of this. Cam Spencer. Bring in an impact transfer. And an impact he had. Hard to quantify the impact Cam had, not only from a basketball perspective, but psychologically giving this team that edge that nobody was going to take that title away from us. Nobody. Nobody wanted it more than Cam. And you mix all of that together after losing so much from a title team in 23, and you absolutely destroy the field in 2024. 37-3. Big East regular season champs. Big East tournament champs. Dominant NCAA tournament run. Back to back. So now, coming into this season, who will we have to kind of make those adjustments? You lose your starting five, minus Alex. Donovan's gone. Cam's gone. Tristan. Steph. They've all gone to the NBA. 5 players, plus you lose Apostolus to the transfer portal. So 6 in total. You return double champs, right? Sampson, Alex, and Haas. You return one-time champions, Jalen Stewart, solo ball, Jaden Ross, Yusuf Singari. They've seen it. They know what to do. You bring in 2 impact transfers, Terrace Reed, who many are talking about as a baby Adama. That type of footwork. Almost, what did Dan Hurley say? He's almost too athletic for his own good. They're reining that in. Aiden Mahaney, 1,000-point scorer at St. Mary's. They bring in a 5-star. Is this starting to sound familiar? Liam McNeely. Ahmad Noel, top 30. Isaiah Abraham, top 60. The connective tissue for all of this is 4 men. Dan Hurley, Luke Murray, Kamani Young, and Tom Moore. We're going to take a break and dive into one of those guys and the entire coaching staff Luke Murray and his offensive principles coming up after this. Fire TV is the destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences for smart TVs, as well as using a Fire Stick. That way you can plug it into your existing TV that provides access to millions and millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the playoffs right now, or college basketball, which is right around the corner, 30 days away. You're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created a Fire TV channels to deliver constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us on Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channel lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, and travel, and also cooking videos as well. I love cooking videos. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out on the Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/Fire TV. Or let's do that again. Visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFire TV. Hey guys, it's your old pals from Game Time. If you weren't there for UConn's nail biter against Temple, you missed one of the greatest finishes in UConn history, a 96-yard scoop as time expired on a fumble. Don't let that happen again. In 2 weeks, UConn faces Wake Forest at the Rent, and you've got to be there. If you're stressed about finding tickets, use Game Time. It's the fast, easy way to buy last-minute tickets for sports, music, comedy, and theater. In this case, it's the sports. Go to the UConn football games. They've got great flash deals, and you can see your seat view before you buy. Best of all, Game Time guarantees you the lowest price. If you can find a better price at the same section in a row, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So absolutely nothing to lose. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use the code Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Zanetto. We're talking the UConn men and why they are on the cusp of creating a modern-day dynasty. It's a few years in the making, and how Dan and his staff were able to implement these wholesale changes is incredible. Let's review it. Dan Hurley's offensive transformation, and I think is the reason why UConn fans can be so cocky about Dan and his team is because of the meticulous nature of which they're crafted and assembled. So like when we don't get the number one overall recruit, or we lose out on XYZ player, no one seems to kind of give pushback to Dan Hurley. I wonder why that is, because it seems to be that he has a plan, unlike a lot of coaches. Following the early NCAA exits, Dan knew he had to elevate UConn's offense to match that defensive grit. And that's also, I'm going to keep saying that, if we bring in a player, Dan feels they can play defense, even if they haven't in the past. So they were all of his teams were previously reliant on toughness and defense, and UConn's offense was kind of I don't want to say back burner, but it was like when you score, you score. But we're going to stop them so much, it's not going to matter that much. But that offense was reimagined to ensure greater scoring flexibility. And honestly, it's made a more, aesthetically pleasing watch for fans. But outside of that, they win. Like it's not even, it's an amazing, like, greatest show on turf. Like, remember the LA Rams, God, I'm aging myself even more. The St. Louis Rams at that time with Kurt Warner, it was just like an aesthetically pleasing team. But that defense that they had on that Rams team is the reason why they actually ended up winning that title. So I think you can't have one without the other. So why not have both, right? And it started when, obviously, they lost to New Mexico State with Teddy Allen having 37 points. And I think UConn shot 7 of 23 from three. And he was like, never again are we going to have a team that can't shoot the rock. And so it was a 4-part strategy. The first one is, with him, and Obviously, Luke Murray was a big part of this. The core offensive principles. Hurley introduced with Luke Murray's presence a motion-heavy, read and react system, emphasizing off-ball screens, cutting and passing rather than isolation or traditional pick and rolls. This shift demanded players excel in real-time decision-making and adaptability, processing, why they call Alex Karaban the brain center, and reducing reliance on solo efforts. So where they made some recruiting adjustments, they began targeting these versatile players who excelled as shooters, passers, and quick decision makers. Recruiting players with these attributes allowed UConn to establish a team of adaptability, and recruiting players that are multifaceted helps with team chemistry versus why didn't I get my 20 points tonight? Nobody cares. Coaching staff development. Hurley leaned on assistant coach Luke Murray to modernize their approach. So Murray brought a wealth of knowledge from the Euroleague and NBA analytics, influencing the team's shot selection and offensive sets. So now, in particular, when I watch this team play, and I will watch it again this year, since he's encouraging them to focus on efficient scoring areas like three-pointers and rim shots and free throws and minimizing low-efficiency mid-range attempts, you'll see that majority of these guys, even if they're open from mid-range, will try to find, they hunt for their hot zones, right? They I think there was a point where they shot something ridiculous, like when they were in their hot zones between Alex Karaban, Cam Spencer, and Tristan Newton last year, like 76% efficiency rate. It's mind-boggling how they're able to kind of break it down. I'm sure if they did this with analytics, you can see like hot zones, like red, yellow, blue. Blue would probably be cold, right? And if you remember last year, I remember talking about this, Cam Spencer wouldn't shoot a ton of wings on or shots not in the corner, not on the top of the key, but on the wing. He didn't have a ton of three-pointers from that spot. And I feel like it's because even when he was open, he would kick because he was trying to get a better shot. And I think those type of quick decisions, because you're not even thinking about it, you just know because you were shown you're not the best shooter from this spot. When you're at the top of the key and you're open, pull it. When you're in the corner, pull it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like when they show those boxes of hitters, I'll use a Yankee, Aaron Judge, 700 batting average when it's like chest high, probably 120 when it's low and away because he's susceptible to a slider, right? So those type of analytics are where they really kind of made their hay. And also practice reconfiguration. They practice, redesign, and instill new offensive habits. Players drilled specific concepts versus kind of just the traditional way they're working on concepts like spacing, cutting, screening. Additionally, Hurley introduced components of specific setups, layered actions. They talked about this in the JJ Redick podcast. They may have 12 different variations to one play set. Thus, why you're recruiting players who can process faster. So I say that all to say, we're going to pause for a second because I have a reminder for you guys. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and is now also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Luke Murray's fingerprints are all over this. He's experienced with the analytics. He is emphasizing high-value areas on the court. They use data from HD Intelligence, and the team tailored their offense around individual player strengths. Hot zones, data-driven approach transformed UConn into an offensive machine with almost 76% of their shots coming from either the rim or beyond the arc, maximizing efficiency and scoring output, sometimes at an 81% efficiency. If you remember last year against Northwestern, in the second round game, we were awful from three-point land. Didn't stop shooting them, but we shot 88% from two because we were working for high, efficient, quality two-point shots. So all of this to say that they've adapted to this analytical approach that hasn't taken away from the defensive nature and the grit and the grime of this team. So Dan has made adjustments. Kamani's made adjustments to that kind of old school mentality, to the new school stuff. And they studied these elite offensive systems from the EuroLeague and top college programs and integrated all these ideas into UConn's playstyle. This philosophy shift has transformed this team into a juggernaut of epic proportions, because UConn has not only been good, they're getting better. Like, I understand they had better players from 24 to 23 and experienced players, but that 24 team was the most efficient offense in 25 years. So with this revamped strategy, I think Hurley has built UConn not only into a championship caliber team and a repeat champion, but potentially unlocking the formula for a dynasty. It's all there. It's all right in front of us. Coming up, let's talk about this year's team, why it can three-peat and do what its predecessors did, and maybe the reasons why it can't. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find top quality professionals who are the right fit. That's why you need LinkedIn Jobs. It's got the tools to help you find qualified candidates faster and for free. With access to a network of over 1 billion professionals, LinkedIn is the best place to hire your talent you won't find anywhere else. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn, talking about how Dan Hurley and his staff have transformed into the dynasty, the back-to-back champion / potential dynasty that they are on the precipice of being. It all started with the loss in the first round with the Teddy Allen game, and then we had Michael Cohen on, and we just revisited that. The part of that piece that we talked about with him about the analytics that Luke Murray brought to this team to kind of really incorporate Euroleague style games without giving up the defensive intensity, and how they adjusted to that with the recruiting aspect. So this 24-25 Huskies are perfectly positioned to continue the offensive juggernaut legacy that propelled them to back-to-back titles. It's all out in front of them. They have seasoned players. So if you think about the connective tissue of the last two teams, people have been left behind that won titles, and they brought in more talent. And this year's left behind. I find that funny. You have obviously Alex Caravan stepping up as the team's veteran leader. Samson Johnson now kind of anchoring that paint as the starting center. Hassan Diarra controlling the backcourt as the starting point guard. Has an incredibly solid starting foundation of experience. And what's exciting, though, is the influx of young talent. And the sophomores, remember, don't come back here unless you're making the leap. And every time Dan Hurley has bet on this, it's come out green. And so we're looking at that sophomore class: Solomon Ball, Jalen Stewart, Jay Ross, maybe a little bit of Yusef Singari to make that leap. I think Jay Stu is the most likely to make that sophomore surge, although Solo, I think, is right there too. They're joined by a fresh wave of newcomers who promise to make an immediate impact. Another 5-star, Liam McNeely, known for his scoring and his pedigree as an incredible All-American. He's expected to slot seamlessly into potentially shooting guard, small forward spots. Adding Aiden Mahaney, 1,000-point scorer, brings another just absolute bucket getter and someone with experience and shot-making ability at the college level. Terrace Reed Jr. getting a lot of affection as being referred to as a baby Adama, that, he has the footwork of Adama Sanogo, just not the polish. That's what Dan Hurley and his staff is for, to kind of get that inside presence and get Reed's defensive capabilities to where he needs to be, as well as a potential scorer around the rim. I think a combination of all these talents ensures that this season UConn will be an offensive nightmare for opposing teams. I think their roster can score from multiple positions, dominate in transition, grind out wins with physically imposing defense. Because if you look at this team, if you look at Alex, Samson, Hassan, Solo, Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, Liam, Yusef, Aiden, Terrace, Ahmad, Isaiah, all of these guys, if UConn wants, they can play multiple different ways. We've talked about this, right? I think the key of this team is going to be around two things, or actually more than two things, a few things. One, Alex Caravan's leap to being a high usage player. He's been mostly low usage because he's been like the third or fourth option on the team. Now he's going to be 1 or 2. Does Hassan Diarra make the leap, as we chronicled last time, from 6th man of the year to all Big East player? Samson Johnson, is he going to be the defensive presence that Donovan Clingan was last year to even a tinier degree? Like, he doesn't have to be the most impactful player in college basketball because he's not 7'2", but can he be a more impactful player on the offensive and, more importantly, on the defensive side? Because I don't think Samson's going to be asked to do a lot scoring wise. And we've heard a few different things about how they're going to use him. Could be different this year. I'm looking forward to that. Solo ball, he's made a leap. Is he going to be the starting 2 guard that is going to be in that Hawkins, Cam Spencer mold, where you're running him off screens and having him attack the basket and shoot a lot of threes? I think that's a big aspect of it. Jalen Stork can play that role. I also think Liam McNeely can play that role in many different facets as 6'7", 6'8", which is incredible. And same with Jalen Stork at that same height. Liam McNeely on the ball, off the ball. Can Ahmad Noel be a point guard that is going to be able to, give Haas a break and allow the offense to flow seamlessly? I think the answer to that is yes. I think the only reason this team takes a step back from the championship caliber team that it's been the last 2 years is maintaining the defensive intensity. Not that Dan's going to let them down and not be able to kind of match that intensity, but can they match the defensive prowess of these last teams? You lose Steph Castle, who was your best on-ball defender. Who's going to take that mantle? Is it Jalen Stewart? Is it Jaden Ross maybe? Could it be one of the freshmen like Isaiah Abraham? You lose an elite shot blocker in Donovan Clingan because of his size and the ability to basically just stand straight up and have and affect shots. But also, and my dad and I used to talk about this all the time about Donovan Clingan in his 2 years. He used to deter people from getting to the basket just by being in the area. They don't have that guy this year, so they're going to have to play differently defensively than they have the last 2 years. So I think that's going to be the key to it. Can they maintain defensive prowess? They were the 4th ranked defense in the country last year, on top of being the number 1 offense. So can they? I don't think they can match that. But if they can come close, to being a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, this team 100% can win another national championship. So the focus to me early in the season is going to be around the defensive side, more so on the offense, because I don't think they're going to have any problem scoring. There are way too many options, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I say this with caution. Don't be surprised if some of the players that you think we're going to play don't, because they need to meet that defensive intensity of Dan Hurley and his teams of the past. Overall, I think this team has an incredible opportunity to do something historic and continue this dynasty building under Dan Hurley and the UConn Huskies. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Tomorrow, we're going to get into some more recruiting news and talk to some folks about what this team will look like in their opinion. I gave you mine today. Stay locked on. Stay connected. Make sure that toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.